It's really cool to be here. I came all the way from Seattle, where I left sunshine and came to rain. So I'm not sure how that worked out. Went the wrong way, but it's really good to be here. I'm going to try to accomplish 3 quick things in 30 minutes. First thing I have to do, because GovDelivery New Civic sent me all the way here, I have to talk a little bit about what we do, which I'm very happy to do. But then I'm going to dive into some theory, not too much, kind of my positions lately on open data, and then hopefully give you a couple practical tips and things I've learned in the last year working with agencies, and we'll go from there. Cool, so a little bit about New Civic. That's not on this slide, is that it was bought, so I work for GovDelivery, and we acquired New Civic back in December. So I'm way overdue updating this slide. But it's a OpenSaaS company, which I'm going to describe in a minute, that was founded by a former state CIO out of New York, Andrew Hoppen, who's kind of I don't know, he's a little bit of a rock star in the open data, open source space. It's made up and comprised mostly of former government folks, including myself, who've been working with them now since we acquired them. I started in government, and so we all have sort of a perspective, I think, and appreciation for what you're doing, what you're going for. And frankly, as it's translated a little bit in how we interact with agencies, I hope it has for the agencies we worked with here, appreciation for the vendor relationship that you guys have to work with on a daily basis. So hopefully act a little bit different in that way. You're going to hear a little bit about Drupal. I'm not going to sell you on Drupal. I'm not going to sell you on a lot of these ideas today, but I just wanted to kind of touch on a high level why we build an open data platform on Drupal. And this chart really does it for me. Most agencies are either on Drupal or are moving towards Drupal, which is a content management system. It allows you to build your websites and expand your reach and your space and your engagement online. So what we found was that, or what New Civic found was that it came across a lot of bespoke open data projects, but a lot of these, as we're going to talk a lot more about later, needed the ability to extend the functionality of the open data or do more with the visualizations, and wanted to be able to leverage the ability of a content management system. And there wasn't anything out there on the market. The best product, that, frankly, in the market was CCAN at the time, which didn't have that CMS backend. So hence, DCAN was born. And so DCAN is a complete open data platform. It's built on top of a CMS. So you have all the things you expect of a world-class open data platform, very comparable to the other solutions in the market. I think we're all fairly even now in terms of feature set. So it has the data store, API, data visualizations are all out of the box functionality, publishing workflows, those types of things. Fully open standards compliant. You heard earlier about US Project Open Data. And again, the advantage to being on Drupal is that we get to leverage the literally international community of Drupal developers, to Drupal engineers that work on Drupal projects every day. They can also work on DCAN without any really additional training. So if you don't like us and we're working with you, it's very easy to fire us and go find any Drupal shop in Atlanta. There are probably 1,000 of them. So we like that aspect of it. Just a couple of high-level benefits of DCAN. Again, it's completely open source because it's built on top of Drupal, Drupal being an open source content management system. So anybody can go download it and use it. We actually have a one-click link on our website, DCAN Go. So if you want to just spin up your own DCAN instance, run with it, go play with it. In fact, I encourage you to do that, even if you're interested in purchasing one or having a vendor implement one for you, just so you can see what all it does. Of course, it allows you to manage your basic data and information, but because it's got that Drupal backend, you got a lot of great document and CMS control as well. Again, all in that single stack of software. So it's really elegant from a technology footprint standpoint. And there's that de facto support market that we talked about. So again, this isn't kind of really world-changing right here, right? Charts, everyone's doing charts now, but just wanted to show you basic high-level visualization since we talked about that a little bit already. You got complete charts functionality out of the box. We can do dashboards. This is actually a dashboard I just mocked up for state a couple nights ago for a performance dashboard. Very easy to build your own dashboards using all those charts and graphs that you just created inside of DCAN and assemble those in a really elegant, compelling way. And I get to talk about a little bit more of that in a minute. And then workflow functionality. And there's some of that built into Drupal already. And one of the cool things about being an open source project is that we work with a lot of agencies, and a lot of agencies tell us about specific needs that they have that we hadn't thought about prior. And so in the case of healthdata.gov, which we launched a couple months ago, they had some very specific workflow functionality that they needed that we were like, I'm pretty sure about everyone's going to need to have that. So we're in the process of rolling that into the product. So that's a really cool example of how one agency is really sponsoring development into the platform, and everybody's going to benefit, and no one else has to pay for that development again. So I've said OpenSaaS right in the very beginning. What is OpenSaaS? So OpenSaaS is really just taking the best of open source and sort of a SaaS model for software. We don't require our customers to let us host. In fact, in the case of here in Georgia, it's hosted here on your Acquia Cloud. But a lot of people just prefer that and opt to have us host. And so we have that. You have all the benefits that come with that too as well. All right, so just a quick summary here. 100% open source. Yay, open source. Working, monetized software. It's been a long time coming. I'm so excited it's happening. There's more products now coming in the market that fits that category. That is really, really good news for government software. Really good news. Prices will continue to drop and quality continue to go up. We do provide, of course, 24-hour support. Part of the reason why GovDelivery bought NewCivic, and NewCivic thought that was an awesome idea, is because GovDelivery has one of the best 24/7 SLA call centers and support systems in the government technology space. So everyone gets the benefit from that nowadays. We have a number of different hosting providers, including, like I mentioned, Acquia, Pantheon, IBM. So we have a lot of options there. And flat annual cost, we're very proud of our pricing. We don't like to throw a bunch of extra add-ons. So anybody ever asks me how much does it cost me, less than half a second, I'm going to tell you. I don't like to be ambiguous around money. It's really awesome because we don't have to implement DCAN all over the world in order for it to be a worldwide phenomenon. So we actually find out a lot of people that use DCAN just from Google alerts say, hey, country of Italy just launched a DCAN portal, and we're like, that's awesome. We don't even have to know about it. It's a completely open distro, and so people are forking it all the time, throwing up their own open data portal, and then we find out about it later. However, a lot of these we did work with and implemented, and we're very proud of that, from the White House on down. And I just wanted to show you a couple of snapshots of what they look like to give you an example of just how versatile. This is just the homepage you can get with this open data portal. Again, all the advantage is in the fact that it's all built on Drupal. So the page structure, the layouts, the CSS, the theming, the fonts, graphics, everything, it's all just borrowing all the heavy lifting that Drupal gives it. So you can just see the differences, pretty substantial. These aren't templates that are in DCAN. This is just basic DCAN theming. This is actually a really cool open data portal. They had about 40,000 different metadata types. I can't even fathom how they acquired or wrote all those, but that's what they had, and they needed a really easy way to search across all of those and find data for their scientists. This is a really cool project that really showed off the extensibility and sort of the robustness of Drupal. Russia? We had nothing to do with that, found that out later. They're using DCAN. And more. This is Italy's most recent one. So it's pretty cool. I think it's just exciting to be part of a movement that you're not having to be on the front lines for every front, and that's DCAN. Okay, so what I want to talk about is open data. I did my sponsorship responsibility, right? That's why I'm here. Let's talk a little bit about open data, and I wish I could talk more about a couple of these things, but feel free to find me afterwards if you want me to expound on some of these points later. But I wanted just to touch on a little bit about the past of open data. I saw the slide earlier showing some of the legislation, some of those bills I worked on many years ago. Oklahoma in 2011 is actually we started working on that in 2009. So I've been doing this for a while, and everyone's learned a lot. It's been playing around with open data. So I'll share a couple of those lessons learned and observations. Talk about what I've been calling the last mile of open data, which is hopefully literally the last mile, the last big effort that we have to work on in order to be kind of successful for a long period of time in the technology aspect, and then how you can implement some of that. So this is kind of the brief history of open data in 3 bullet points. Originally, we started doing open data for accountability reasons, right? We wanted to know what people were spending money on. And so we're like, well, we need to throw all this, we call it like checkbooks, online checkbooks. We put all the transactional information online. We thought that would make everybody spend money better. We would have more transparency, and all of our elected officials, I was one at the time, would suddenly snap into a position, and all this money, all the money that's being wasted in government, just trillions of dollars being wasted in government, would stop suddenly, right? Of course, I'm not being facetious, there's not trillions of dollars being wasted. That's the big myth, right? So we did clean up a little bit, and some of that helped, but it didn't really push open data, or didn't really justify investment, which can sometimes be very considerable from an operational standpoint, not from a technology standpoint, but from a training, a maintenance, and operation standpoint. It didn't really justify a lot of the investment. So we moved on to citizen engagement, or what we often call the apps ecosystem. And that's still going, and it's going to keep going for a long time. We still have the same problem, though, monetizing that from an ROI standpoint. It's been difficult, especially since a lot of the apps don't really integrate well with existing technology. So you're really you're increasing the usefulness of data, but you're exponentially increasing the technology footprint that's required to maintain all these new applications. And so I'm huge on that. Hosted a lot of hackathons, been a big advocate of that. I don't want to belittle that, but I think that's not the ultimate future of open data, especially as it relates to the specific applications. I think those have to be integrated deeper into our government's software stacks in the future. But it's an excellent place to R&D and beta a lot of those ideas. Fantastic place to do that. So keep doing that. And then lastly, what I think is what we're starting to see now, which is true digital transformation. And I say we're starting to, but we've been talking about it for a long time. Data-driven government has been a cliche forever. But I think we're actually starting to figure out ways that we can do that. And not just from a definition standpoint, from a technology implementation standpoint. So this is really using data-driven technology to improve not just the services, which is the government way that we look at what we do, but actually improve lives. And that's what we're going to talk about some more. It's a key difference right there. Transforming and viewing our services in the context of everyday citizens' day-to-day activities. So we actually know all this, or knew all this already, right? We understood that sometimes government services don't interact well or don't interface well. We saw some more examples earlier from the Code for Atlanta folks, that just a disconnect in day-to-day life and what we're offering or asking people to do. For example, if I wake up in the morning in Seattle and I want to know if it's going to rain, I'm not going to pull up Noah's CSV file and go looking to try to find out, right, if it's going to rain or not. I'm just going to pull up a weather app, or even if I've programmed my phone correctly, my phone's just going to tell me right there, right? It's going to rain today. It never rains in Seattle. So we've known this. We don't go digging through databases to find out if our prescriptions are ready at the pharmacy, right? We expect to get a text message. Or we're not going to go hunting around for their restaurant inspection data in the back office, right, to find out if they passed. We just look it up on Yelp, right? So we already know this intuitively, but we haven't really done a very good job of expanding this and actually making this the primary front of open data. We're starting to get better at it, and so let's talk a little bit more how we can do that. We can further that cause. So one of the first things I do when I get handed a CSV file or Excel spreadsheet, and I get handed a lot of those, is I try to understand what in this information that the average person, or a person, try to envision a user, a citizen, would care about this information. Otherwise, it's completely a waste of my time and waste of somebody else's resources for me to try to figure out, to play with that and make it look pretty on a chart if nobody's going to care about it. So I encourage everyone, when you're looking at information, you're trying to visualize it, you're trying to figure out what to do with it, because you have lots of it. You have tons and tons of data, and you're going to be asked increasingly to put that online to figure out, maybe people would care about it, but maybe only one column or one row actually is relevant. Just cut out the rest of it, keep it internally for internal operation standpoints, make it programmatically available perhaps on your API, but in terms of what you're going to show the public, the average person, cut it out. Cool. So we started off by saying portals for users with a purpose, right? Because that's the technologist way of looking at the problem. And I'm not going to go so far to say you don't need open data portals, because you do. There's lots of good reasons and a lot of validation behind any effort that goes into creating an open data portal. But that's not the technology endgame for you. And I know we're in the business of doing open data portals. But what I really mean is that what you need to think about is the open data portal as your toolbox, your toolkit. Nobody is going to hire a home builder to build them a home and then expect the home builder to just, back up the truck, load off all the lumber, hand them a bunch of tools and say, there you go, there's your home, right? It's all disassembled. They need to put it together. They need to make it useful for them. So I want you to think about open data portals from this day forward as your toolbox and all the building materials you need, your framework, to be able to do that, to then go to people, provide them with the information they're looking for. And a good open data portal should be a good toolkit for you. All right, so how to do it. That was the theory. I think I'm making good time. This is awesome. How to do this. The first thing is, perfection is the enemy of good, right? We need to make sure that we're not, I see this all the time, especially in RFPs. People send me an RFP for an open data project, and it's just got 200 technical requirements. It's like, man, we're never going to be successful. You can't be successful or be really good at one thing, right? We're trying to be great at everything. And so my first encouragement would be to just focus on one thing that you want to do well and build that and make that available. That may just mean making a dashboard for your mayor's office, and that's it. The mayor's your user, and you just want to make them happy. Make that your open data project. You might have to have an open data portal. You might not have to have an open data portal, but hone in on what it is that you need to get done immediately and do that one at a time. You'll start to see your ecosystem come together, all the pipes talking to each other once you do that. And if you've invested well in your technology, which is not hard to do nowadays, you'll be fine. This one's kind of funny because I feel like as a guy who played around with iframes when they first came out on the web, this is like we're coming full circle. But like make everything embeddable is kind of a weird thing to focus on, but it actually matters a lot when we talk about engaging citizens where they're at. Make sure that if you're creating a visualization, that you can put it anywhere on the web. That's all I'm going to say about that. It seems like a simple kind of pedestrian point, but it's kind of funny how oftentimes we disable the embed option or don't think about that. We just put it on our portal and we think that there it is. The chart that's going to make everyone's lives better is on my portal, and then forget that nobody's coming to the portal, right? So find out where they are at, where they are visiting. Maybe it's on their news websites, maybe it's at their local PTA group, whatever it is. Find out what they need, give that to them, that visualization, and then you're done. Your job's done. Diffuse your open data strategy is another big one. Again, breaking down this idea that open data is just some big monolithic project, and it's just not true. Just like I wouldn't say all government services are alike, right? It would not be fair to put everybody in this room together working on this all of one service at a time. It just wouldn't work. So data is not the same way. It's disparate, it's different, it's bespoke, it's all those silly words to mean that you can't just lump it all together. And so it's not one technology is gonna solve all your problems or accomplish all of your goals there. So think about your data as it is and what its job is and what you're trying to do with it separately. And then my favorite point, and which is the third component what I talked to you about today, which is really just sort of what I've started to introduce more and more in conversations with agencies, because it's becoming a really useful training tool, I guess you could say, for understanding how to be effective using all these things, which is the user story. Is there anybody in this room, I'm hoping, that is familiar with Agile methodology? Yay, I know that. I know the code for Atlanta guys now, right? Okay, awesome, cool. So I'm not going to sell you on Agile, but what I am going to do is sell you on user stories. And you've probably heard about them. I'm hoping you have. If not, cool. I get to teach you something today that I think can change your life. So a user story is this. It is and I'm using citizen segment. It could be anything. It could be as a parent. It could be as a police officer. If you're building a website, it could be as an administrator, as a browser. I would like some goal so that some benefit. Pretty basic, right? I actually have a Kanban board, not a true Agile, a Scrum board in my house, where my kids get to write these things out when they want something. to do or have a big goal they work on, because it really helps them understand what they want and why they want it. It's a really, really powerful little tool. So here's some examples of real live user stories. And then I'm going to tie this all back to open data. So as a single mother, I would like to have access to high quality childcare so that I can work a good job and provide for my family. There's not going to be a lot of single mothers that don't have that, share that user story. As a homeowner, I would like to find ways to protect my home from burning so that it doesn't burn down and I become homeless. Pretty simple, right? As a child, I would like to be able to be safe while I'm playing at the park so I can stay healthy and uninjured. You get the idea, right? They can be general, they can be specific. The more specific, the more effective you'll be at reaching the benefit and more specifically measuring your outcomes. All right, so here's how it all comes back to data. Real world user story as a single mother. This is the single mother childcare one. What we're going to measure, this is not necessarily the open data folks' responsibility to measure. It might be 5 other agencies or departments that are responsible for collecting this information, but they're going to measure or provide you the data on the proximity to high quality childcare, maybe facility ratings if you're doing audits or inspections on those. And this is where you get to have fun. Now we get to go back to that single parent and wherever they're at in the world, and we could say, hey, I bet you need to know where good high quality childcare is so that you can continue to work a good job and provide well for your family. And I've got a map that shows you where all they're at, right? That's a super simple example, but it's a real world problem. And you can solve that with open data. We can even take it a step further, and we can let them sign up for alerts. If you're using an open data portal that allows you to do alerts, and so that I can sign up for maybe text message alerts so that where my child is already going, maybe receives a bad mark or a bad rating, or gets upgraded and it gets better, then I can get a text message alert about that. Those are real world, very meaningful things that open data can do to improve lives. And I just workflowed it for you so you have a chance to see what that looks like. Access to high quality childcare, increase in quality of childcare, increase the number of options. These are sort of the operational goals for the agency. I think I'm missing my text around there. Operational goals there. And this is what we're showing, right? There's not an open data portal in the world that can't do this. Okay? So I say that. I mean, there may be some really bad technology out there, but for the most part, you're going to be able to visualize that, right? Okay, here's another one. Improving fire protection, improve access to fire services might be a fire department's goal and objective, reduce household risk. Do you think that it's important to the average citizen to know how far it is to their fire station or a fire hydrant, let's say? It is, right? Because why is it important for homeowners to know the distance? Does anybody know? Okay. Exactly. If you ever own a home, you've all had to buy insurance, and you always have to know, right? And you may not know the answer, but the insurance company is going to know the answer. And if it's not right, guess what? You're paying more, right? So it's important. I've looked that up. I've measured that out on Google Maps because I want to know. Cool. All right, so Agile Data. Feel free to TM that or whatever you want, use it wherever you want. I'm just calling it Agile Data because I don't know what else to call it. But this is just sort of the way you look at your data now. Just break it up and focus on the user. So it's not really perfection, but I kind of think it is. Build the perfect experience with one user in mind at a time. So when you're looking at your data, or more specifically, when you're looking at your services, go back to the service deliverable or the person who's providing the service in the agency, whether it be the bus driver or the police officer. Ask them what's important to the people that they're serving every day. What would be helpful for them to know? And then reverse engineer it back to the data, right? Don't let the data drive your technology and what the average citizen sees. Because chances are they probably want to see one little slice of it anyway. Except for the programmers. They want to see all of it, right? Cool. So these are some examples of what you can kind of run with there. I'm a garage sale addict. And I can tell you, most cities require you to get a permit to do a garage sale, right? So put those on a map somewhere so I can go look for those either. Otherwise, I drive around looking at signs. It's totally inefficient. Hey, that was fast, wasn't it? Is that under 30? Way under 30? Awesome, cool. So I can go back and ramble farther if I need to, because this is a really fun thing to do. But why don't I just open it up for questions and yeah, we'll do that. There's my contact information too. Peter.
Yeah, I really like what you said about having the user story. I think with state government, we have so much data. We want to try to do everything we want to with it, and have these giant databases with tables that are connected and I think that really hits home of trying to make your story simple and come up with one user. There's no question there.
Yep. Yeah, we do this already. We're already good at this from a service standpoint. We already know that we can't provide perfect services to everyone all the time, right? We know that because we're all human. There's limitations that are outside of our control. So we prioritize. And I think this is really what this is about, is to take a second and write the user stories for the people that you think is going to get value out of the data, which is probably going to be wrong a couple times. So be ready to change your mind. But write those user stories out and then prioritize those. By what you think is most important. Don't try to do and satisfy every single potential user story as related to data that you can possibly work on. You're not going to be successful that way. And chances are you'll miss out on really good feedback. And so to borrow the Agile methodology for a second, iterate, right? So work on a couple of those and let it snowball into something that's really awesome and really, really useful. And what you'll find, I think, if you actually take the information to the person that's actually looking for it, you satisfy that user, these people here, you'll find, this is again, it's not a dig on open data portals, but you'll find most of these people are not going to go to an open data portal to get what they're looking for. But chances are they're going somewhere else on a regular basis. We have this, I think, just infatuation with portals, which is nothing wrong with a portal. It's how I make a living, but it's an auto dealer who's looking to know what tax rates or tax brackets he's in. He may go looking there, or may not, but it might also be, he probably is a part of a home association or a group, and they probably have a website or some sort of circular they send out. So it might just be more effective, and you reach more people, and frankly, just make them happier and more excited to be that you're working with them or working for them, to send that to them and be proactive. And make that automatic, where they can automatically get that information. So your open data portal will look way more like a place where all that information lives, the data store, and where you're playing with it and doing a little fun data wrangling, which is what's really fun to do. But then where actually people are interacting with it, could be spread out all over the web. And that's ideal. That's better. Any other questions? I had to pay him $5 to ask a question, so I didn't stand up here and look silly. Yes?
Yeah, you said make it embeddable.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could just give us a little definition or a little guidance on what you have to do to make sure something's embeddable.
Great. So sure, and I apologize for the brevity. I was a little terrified at the timeline, because normally I spend more than 30 minutes, but I think I might have went too far the other direction. So let me expand on that for a minute. When I say embeddable, there's a couple ways that you can think about embedding the information. One is literally embed it, like with an iframe. Right? Are you familiar with an iframe? So that would be like just being able to build a chart and take some code and then drop it anywhere on the web, right, in a web page somewhere. It's relatively simple to do. It usually doesn't take a technologist to do that, but that's probably the most common way and most understandable way from a visualization standpoint. And just about any chart or map or anything you build online nowadays allows you to make that embeddable. But we forget that, which is kind of the irony of it, right? It's one of those situations where I just think we haven't seen enough examples of it. It's like how the White House uses it. You can't go find the White House's open data portal because it's not live to the public. But all the visualizations that drive everything on their blog posts and everything else is all driven off that open data portal, right? So it's just a toolkit that they've used to create visualizations, play with the data, and then make it programmatically available, as well as drive that visualization. The second area is less obvious, but I think more long-term functional, which is actually just allowing the information to be embedded in everyday stuff that we're doing. That could be an email, like dropping it into an email that you're sending out to folks, or a text message, which is my favorite. When something changes within your data, you're automatically triggering a text message. Or when something's not changing, maybe you need to tell your police department, hey, your data's not evergreen anymore, it hasn't been updated in 6 months. send them a text alert, right, automatically. Things like that. So embedding the data or the information, really is a better way of looking at, that's inside your open data portal in more common everyday communications. I didn't say social media once, so I should get like a pat on the back for that. But that's the obvious way too as well, right? You can obviously always throw it in social media, but I'm really reluctant to sell you on putting everything that you do on Facebook, because we all know Facebook's a little noisy these days. So already. But that's a great question. Thank you. $5. It's all monopoly money. Any other questions? Cool. That concludes then my talk.